it has a different effect than just being like, oh yeah, he died and someone finished it for him. Like that to me is just like, that's what we're like told, I guess, like in passing. But like then reading the words of the people and hearing about like, I'll never be with him to laugh again. I'll never be with him to talk about physicists or physics again. And it's just like, those are real emotions that Bell was feeling, and it hurts. The quantum mechanics part of this is not relevant to the story. The story is about a man named Junjan Sakurai. Okay, he wrote two other books too. At least these are the most popular ones. Advanced Quantum Mechanics for when you're done with modern. Then you can move on to advanced. I have barely glanced at this book, but I don't think I originally wanted to read some excerpts from these two, and this was the other big one. It's called Invariance Principles and Elementary Particles by Sakurai. These are his 3 main books. Now, today's reading is kind of a sad story, and I hope you guys are into this reading from today. But what I want to emphasize with these things, with these readings, Old Man Reads from Old Books, is about the mentality of the physicists during the time, but the legacies they leave as well. I want to introduce you to them as people more than physicists, because ultimately people often get confused and convoluted and will take something like you know, a person like Feynman and just want to like run with all of the anecdotes that he made and all of the, you know, the research that he did and the discoveries he made, and kind of really forget at some point that he's just a person. He's vibing, like he's doing his thing. So I hope you guys like the personal anecdotes, but this one's a little bit of a sad one. So let's get into it. JJ Sakurai was born in 1933. He died in 1982 at the age of 49 years old. We won't really get into that right now, how he died. We'll talk about that in a second. But he died young. 49 years old is pretty young for a human being. And some of the things you might not know about Sakurai, of course, Sakurai's main book, Modern Quantum Mechanics, is a book that you might use in every single graduate quantum mechanics class. So many people take this book for graduate quantum mechanics. There are others, but I would say the majority of physics students will study from this. Mine is nicely used and marked up, especially in the beginning where we spent a lot of time. You guys can't see, of course, because of my lights, but it's marked up nicely because I spent a lot of time in this. Let's do some. So I just want to talk about Sakurai a little bit. He was born in Japan, I think Tokyo. Let's double check. I have a couple. He was born in Tokyo. Yeah, it was Tokyo, and moved to the United States when he was a high school student. He studied at Harvard and Cornell, and so he studied graduate school at Cornell. His advisor, relevant to last week, was Hans Bethe. So again, excellent physicist Hans Bethe, and Hans Bethe was known for a lot of things, and I would like to spend a day on Hans Bethe because he might be a person who doesn't often get lumped into the you know, some of the more influential physicists, but he absolutely was. So Junjan Sakurai, he developed when he was in graduate school something that was called the VA theory. It's called vector minus axial vector theory, and of weak interactions. And basically, what we can just sort of sum it up as is beta decay. Like radiation, beta particles radiating off of atoms via the weak interaction. Is via the right word? I don't know. Via the weak interactions. And he did this simultaneously with, and this was not in communication, but Gell-Mann and, who is it, Feynman? Yeah, Feynman and Gell-Mann were coming up with the same idea at the same time. And Marshak and Sudarshan were also coming up with the same thing, relatively close to them. I don't know who was first or who published it first or whatnot. But yeah, so Sakurai actually came up with the idea, printed it in a paper, and like this is the level of physicist that he was, is that he could calculate these things, you know, beta decay, and that was, you know, something that was puzzling physicists all over the place at the time. And he was a graduate student. So that was cool. It was huge. Right? And then after that, I think he went to Chicago to become a teacher, where he started writing a lot of books. Let's sort of talk about what happened in, I don't know when it was, if it was in 1980 or 1981. He went to CERN to collaborate with some cohorts, and he suddenly died, which is very sad. They don't really know how he died. It was very sudden. Some people speculated cancer, But he was in the middle, you guys might not know this, is he was in the middle of writing this book. He was not finished with this book yet. He had been writing it but was not finished. And I think a lot of... So then what other people said was probably a heart attack or a stroke, but again, this was 82. They don't really... Like, there's a lot of speculation around his death, but nobody really knows. It was very sudden. And his passing at such a young age, in the middle of writing and everything, kind of shook the physics community a little bit. And it's very sad, but I kind of want to read you some of the cool things that are remembrance about him, right? If you do read these books, one of the reasons I was going to read these books is because one of the things that we're going to read from was an author that was a very, very close friend of his. And in these books, he references these people and thanks them profusely for all of the great conversations and the great and the helpful insights and calculations that they did in writing those books. And then you get to read what those authors say about this death. And honestly, it's really, it's kind of shaking a little bit. Like, you just feel really sad because you know all of the great things that he did as a scientist and as a human. And then all you see is great friendships and stuff. And then you just hear about his passing. And the authors, the two authors I'm going to read from, one is John S. Bell of Bell's Theorem and the Bell Experiment, right? He was very, very good friends with Sakurai. The other one is known as Sanfu Tuan. I think his name is Sanfu Tuan. Maybe someone can correct that. It's Sanfutuan. They were also very, very good friends. And what I'm going to tell you, this will tell you a little bit about who Sakurai was as a person. So let's read the first one. The second one, we won't read the whole thing, but I'm going to read... maybe I will. I don't know. We'll read parts of it, though. So the first one is a foreword to the first edition by John S. Bell. This is in your quantum mechanics book, but like me, I've never read this until recently. So this is very, it's nice. It's very personal, but it's very saddening at the same time. So JJ Sakurai was a very... Oh, let's turn off the music. Hold on. Yeah, so let's read this. Okay, so the foreword to the first edition by John S. Bell in CERN, Geneva. So he was still at CERN during this. Okay, so JJ Sakurai was a very welcome guest here at CERN, for he was one of those rare theorists to whom the experimental facts are even more interesting than the theoretical game itself. So, Kostov, going back to what you were saying, this is Sakurai really cared about the experimental facts, as a lot of theoretical physicists do. So nevertheless, he delighted in theoretical physics and its teaching, a subject on which he held strong opinions. He thought that much of the theoretical physics teaching was both too narrow and too remote from application. So he thought, so like I said, he had strong opinions. He thought that much theoretical physics teaching was both too narrow and too remote from application. And this is him quoted, okay? We see a number of sophisticated yet uneducated theoreticians who are conversant in the LSZ formalism of the Heisenberg field operators, but do not know why an excited atom radiates, or are ignorant of the quantum theoretic derivation of Rayleigh's law that accounts for the blueness of the sky. And he insisted, so this is back to Bell, and he insisted that the student must be able to use what he has been taught, or what they have been taught, excuse me. The reader who has read the book but cannot do the exercise has learned nothing. So that's another quote by Sakurai. He put those principles to work in his fine book, Advanced Quantum Mechanics. Advanced Quantum Mechanics. So the Advanced Quantum Mechanics is 1967, and the Variance Principles of an Elementary Particles, 64, both of which have been very much used in the CERN library. And this new book of modern quantum mechanics should be even more by a larger and less specialized group. The book combines the breadth of interest with a thorough practicality. Its readers will find here what they need to know with a sustained and successful effort to make it intelligible. Sakurai's death on November 1st of 1982 left this book unfinished. Reinhold Bertolin and I helped Mrs. Sakurai sort out her husband's papers at CERN. Ooh, that's got to be so rough. Among them, we found a rough, handwritten version of most of the book and a large collection of exercises. Though only 3 chapters has been completely finished, it was clear that the bulk of the creative work had been done. It was also clear that much work remained to fill in gaps, polish the writing, and put the manuscript in order. That the book is now finished is due to the determination of Noriko Sakurai and the dedication of Sanfu Tuan, which we'll read about in a second. Upon her husband's death, Mrs. Sakurai resolved immediately that this last effort should not go to waste. With great courage and dignity, she became the driving force behind the project. Overcoming all obstacles and setting the high standards to be maintained, Tuan willingly gave his time and energy to the editing and completion of Sakurai's work. Perhaps only others close to the hectic field of high-energy theoretical physics can fully appreciate the sacrifice involved. For me, JJ had long been far more than just a particularly distinguished colleague. It saddens me that we will never laugh together at physics, at physicists, and life in general, and that he will not see the success of his last work. But I am happy that it has been brought to fruition. John S. Bell. So sad. Oh man, the sacrifice that his wife made to like say like her husband has just passed, and he said that she quickly, moved into making sure that his work was not lost. And I think that that's such a testament to her and Tuan. Tuan mentions in something. Like I said, I could have swore it was this one. Oh, here we go. This is I was reading the wrong thing. This one in Memoranium. So let me read the last few paragraphs of this one. So when Sakurai was still a graduate student, he proposed what is now known as the V-A theory of the weak interactions, independently and simultaneously with Feynman, Gell-Mann, Marshak, and Sudarshan. In 1960, he published it in the Annals of Physics.
You are a thinker.
A prophetic paper, probably his most important one. It was concerned with the first serious attempt to construct a theory of the strong interactions based on abelian and non-abelian Yang-Mills gauge invariants. The seminal work induced theorists to attempt an understanding of the mechanisms of mass generation for gauge fields, now recognized as the Higgs mechanism. Above all, it stimulated the search for the realistic unification of forces under the gauge principle. Since crowned with success in its celebrated Glasgow-Weinberg-Salam unification of the weak and electromagnetic forces. On the phenomenological side, Sakurai pursued and vigorously advocated the vector mesons dominance model of hadron dynamics. He was a phenomenologist. A lot of the physicists this time were phenomenologists. So let's see. So indeed, he made numerous attempts to contribute to particle physics phenomenology in a serious, more general sense. At his heart was always close to experimental activities. I knew Jean for more than 25 years. I had the greatest admiration not only for his immense powers as a theoretical physicist, but also for the warmth and generosity of his spirits. Though a graduate student himself at Cornell during 57 to 58, he took time from his own pioneering research in gay nucleon dispersion relations to help me via extensive correspondence with my PhD thesis on the same subject at Berkeley. Both Sandip Pekvasa and I were privileged to be associated with his last papers on weak couplings of heavy quarks, which displayed once more his infectious and intuitive style of doing physics. It is of course gratifying to us, in retrospect, that Jean counted this paper among the score of his published works that he particularly enjoyed. The physics community suffered a great loss at Junjan Sakurai's death. The personal sense of loss is a severe one for me. Hence, I am profoundly thankful for the opportunity to edit and complete his manuscript on modern quantum mechanics for publication. In my faith, no greater gift can be given to me than the opportunity to show my respect and love for Junjan through meaningful service. That was the one I wanted to read. That to me speaks volumes. The fact he remembers the sacrifices that Sakurai made for him, and now upon his sudden death, in the midst of being completely crushed, this really good friend of yours has passed away unexpectedly. He goes out of his way to edit the book that was unfinished at the urgency of his wife and at everybody's and this is not a small task to finish a textbook. The amount of time that he dedicated to doing for that, and to say that he's honored by doing it, is just because it speaks the world about these physicists and losing one that they were friends with, losing one that they loved. It's amazing to me, and that's the type. And so again, remember that this is not about this part is not about who did what and how fast and what what. And even though we talk about that, he did the V-A theory, but again, this segment is not about who did what, how fast, and how great was it. It's about remembering the physicists as people, and reading those two things. It just it hits a heartstring, right? They lost their friend. They were like, can you imagine if like you're working with one of your collaborators or one of your good friends, and then like the next day you find out that they just died, and like all of their work, everything they did, and I mean like, you know, it hits hard. So what a brilliant story that Bell and Tuan were able to share. A couple things I wanted to show you is so Sakurai, he made his wife and friends made an endowment to the APS, and now there's a theoretical physics project that is to recognize and encourage outstanding achievement in particle theory. The prize consists of $10,000, an allowance for travel to the meeting of society at which the prize is to be awarded, and a certificate citing the contributions made by the recipient. And that's all.
People too.
That's all his. It is true. Physicists are people too. And they go through these things, and it's important to remember them because, like, they happen. Like on Sunday, I had a really bad day, and you guys were able to snap me out of it and have a great day. And like that's the type of stuff that just happens. Nobody's immune to it. And it's nice to remember these guys as their lives as people, as well as physicists. So this is the endowment. I'll put. I think Commentator put the link in chat. If you are studying theoretical physics, then maybe this would be something to consider in the future. Very, very cool that this is in memory of him. JJ Sakurai was another physicist who just gave his all, taught, was loved, and like a normal human being, he had a normal life with friends and stuff. But the interesting thing about him is it was cut short in a very sad way, and just the amount of people that he impacted. And it's something to celebrate too, celebrate his life as a physicist, and something to look forward to. Because like I said, we always consider the best of people and the worst of people. We try to emulate the best and we try to avoid the worst. And like Sakurai left so many good things for us to consider when moving forward in our own careers, about thinking about how we treat people. You know, what type of legacy do you want to leave? But like it means a lot to me. All right, you want to talk about aliens? You fall asleep in your chair? Awesome. I hope that my voice is relaxing. I would love to, if there's a professor who finished writing a book, I would love to do a voiceover for audiobooks. Just let me know. Let me know. Oh, thank you, NC. I appreciate that. To me, it's important, and honestly, I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I love learning about the physicists, and I love hearing these heartwarming stories, and the ones that just, especially things like this. Like, I knew that he passed away during the middle of writing the book, but I didn't know, not Avi Loeb, Sakurai. Avi Loeb's doing a book tour right now. But I knew that Sakurai passed away in the middle of writing, but I didn't know that, you know, reading the words of the people involved in his death, it has a different effect than just being like, oh yeah, he died and someone finished it for him. Like that to me is just like, that's what we're like told, I guess, like in passing. But like then reading the words of the people and hearing about like, I'll never be with him to laugh again. I'll never be with him to talk about physicists or physics again. And it's just like, those are real emotions that Bell was feeling, and it hurts. It hurts to think that like that people were going through that much pain, but at the same time it's heartwarming because it's just like that's the type of legacy I want to live. I want people to remember all of the good times and the laughing and things like that.